Talk briefly about the situation in the Philippines. Um, I made a video on this subject previously, and that video garnered a bit of a negative response, which I expected. I anticipated that because the person I was talking about, President Rodrigo Duterte, is a very popular figure, at least among the supporters. He also has a lot of critics within the Philippines. He's a very polarizing figure. As mayor of Davao, he was known for making Davao one of the safest cities in the Philippines, had been one of the most dangerous. So he got a lot of credit for that. But during his tenure as mayor, there was something called the Davao Death Squads. He's denied direct involvement, but my understanding of the Philippines, and this is as an outsider, I'm not saying I know everything, but my understanding of the situation is that very few things are black and white. Now, what concerns me about the current situation is the utterly reckless and unpresidential rhetoric from Rodrigo Duterte. I'm aware that his supporters won't like what I have to say, but to be honest, I don't really care because I'm not the only one. There's many, many people around the world, including, by the way, in the Philippines, who are concerned about this. In the last few months alone, almost 2,000 people have been killed in this drug war that he has launched. Now, look at Mexico. The The Calderon administration launched a war on drugs there. That war has claimed 150,000 plus lives. Now, I'm aware that a lot of those people are, rival drug cartels, but a very large number of civilians have been killed in the crossfire. Um, and like I said in the previous video, I don't want people to misinterpret my position. I am not liberal on crime. And I have no sympathy with the top drug lords. So I totally, totally understand Filipinos who have suffered from these bastards wanting action to be taken against them. I have no sympathy for those people. They cause a lot of misery. They indoctrinate young minds. They push these drugs onto the streets. And it's despicable what they do. But the sort of language this man is using is downright dangerous. He's basically advocating vigilantism, and no one can deny that he's advocating vigilantism. He's said it. This guy is far. He makes Donald Trump look moderate. Um, when you have a head of state actually advocating vigilantism, that is just dangerous. And this situation is going to get worse if Mexico is anything to go by. So people can be all nationalistic and get defensive now and say, I'm a foreigner, I don't know what I'm talking about, or whatever. But I'm telling you, this situation will get worse if he doesn't start acting a bit more presidential. I've no problem, by the way, with a concerted campaign against drug lords. That's probably essential, in fact. But there's a huge difference between taking out a top drug kingpin and shooting suspected drug mules, which is what is going to happen. And where's the due process in all of this? You know, the Philippines is going to go back to a very dark period in its history, and I do know a bit about Filipino history. If it goes down this line, and I know people support him because people who have suffered from crime they want answers. That's totally understandable. So I'm not judging those people. If I was in their shoes, I'd probably be supporting Duterte as well. But this guy is just not acting presidential by calling for vigilante killings. And look at what's happening. 2,000 people dead in 2 months. That's bloodier than some war zones. In fact, this is going to be classed as a war soon. And just look at what's happened in Mexico. So anyone who thinks I'm wrong, that's what I would say. Look at Mexico. Um, I'll leave it there. If you're a Duterte supporter, well, firstly, I'm not going to be silenced. So if you don't like what I have to say, tough. If you're offended, again, tough. I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm just saying, I'm just being honest. I think this is very problematic. Um, I know also that when human rights are discussed, people get very reactionary and nationalistic about that because they think that means that people are, ignoring the crime factor. I think it's completely possible to be consistent with human rights, believe in due process and so on, whilst also believing in justice. So yes, drug kingpins should face justice. Um, but the situation is out of control, and it is absolutely inevitable that innocent people are going to be targeted and falsely accused. This situation is going to get out of control when you have no due process, when you have vigilante groups. Innocent people are going to die, and their blood is going to be partly on President Duterte's hands. That's my opinion. And I know there's Filipinos who agree with me because I've had people say that to me when I've commented on this on news sources. Yeah, I've had people disagreeing with me as well, and that's fine. Um, I'm not telling Filipinos what to do. The Philippines is a sovereign nation. All I'm saying is I'm concerned about what is going to happen there. Because, looking at what's happened in Mexico, the drug war there has only made things worse. And I'm not saying that there's any easy answers. I hate drugs, by the way. I think drugs are a plague on humanity. And I think drug kingpins are some of the most despicable people around. They're little better than terrorists. But the way Duterte is acting, the way he's discarding due process, the way he's advocating extrajudicial killings, it's downright reckless, it's dictatorial, and people should be very concerned about that because one day it's drug lords, the next day it's political opponents. That is the trend in history, and I hope I'm wrong about that, but we'll see what happens. That's my thoughts on current situation in the Philippines.